What up, friends? It is not sunny in here. I was just wearing my sunglasses. My friend Rick gave them to me, and I really like them. So I was wearing them, but I will take them off. Mayweather and McGregor. This has been a fairly all-encompassing idea. Say hello to my friends here on Periscope. This has been a fairly all-encompassing thing in the world of fighting, but in the world. I'm sure as huge fight fans, which is why you're watching a guy's YouTube channel about fighting, and everybody knows you're fight fans. Everybody you know is bringing this up to you. Hey, Steve, man, you're a fight guy. What's going on with this? And it's pretty cool. It's really, really a fascinating thing. It's a moment in time. It's a moment in human history. No matter what happens, the people who quite confidently, although they don't seem that confident, believe this is a farce. It's all about the money and McGregor's going to get destroyed and it shouldn't even happen. If they were that confident, they wouldn't seem so upset, so stressed out. Why would they feel stress? There's that little bit of them. This shouldn't be happening. Why not? Especially these are boxing people. If this is so certain that the boxer is going to destroy him, why do you seem so stressed? Why do you seem so stressed? It's fascinating. Millions of things about it are fascinating, and we've been looking at it deeply, but at the time we're recording this, we're going on 3 weeks out. And so it's going to intensify. Also, there's not a ton of boxing. There's one great fight coming up. And there's almost no MMA, and we're going to just put our blinders on this fight and dig into it. And that, for me, is the great pleasure of analyzing fighting, is dig in, see what we can find, ask a bunch of questions, which raise new questions. Whatever we learn, they raise new questions always. So then we go into those, which raise a new, what's happening? We don't know. This means this, but it didn't. Once we explore the how and the why, sometimes we're left with even more questions. And when that happens, we go even deeper. And the great beauty of this fight, and as we get the space of time between now and the fight itself, is that we can keep going deeper and deeper. And so this is part three of my Mayweather and McGregor analysis. Very quickly, part one, we looked at the fact that the world is ever changing and everything is ever changing from what is the greatest at something now. In 5 years, that'll be different, which means in 5 days, it could be different. These are not permanent facts. The second thing we looked at the first time was the idea of disruption, and that disruptions often or always come from the outside. And what is defined as the outside doesn't mean it has to come from outside of whatever institution we think. It could come from an outside idea, it could come from an outside coach. I mean, McGregor, who was in the UFC, disrupted pressure fighting, but he did it from the outside. His coach and he were from some island in the UK that were not part of the inside groups. They were not part of American Top Team or TriStar or Rufus's camp. They were some outsiders. The fact that they happened to be fighting in the same cage, they were still outsiders. That disruption came from the outside. Stephen Thompson, UFC fighter, disruption, brought it from the world of karate, from the outside. Every disruption in MMA, even within the world of MMA, has come from the outside. Jiu-jitsu, if you go to UFC 1, Jiu-jitsu was a disruption. And all these people had no idea what the little guy in the pajamas was doing. Right? Disruptions always come from a blind spot. We can call that the outside. It's always how it happens. And sometimes you have to dig to prove that, and to prove that bias, you have to dig pretty deep. But conceptually, it's always somebody else. Because the path you're on stays and refines and narrows as you minimize your menu, and something works and you do it more and you do it more. So a disruption is going to come from outside of that thinking. And the last concept of our first one was that the individual themselves is more powerful than the established system. Something that Bruce Lee has talked about, many others, is wrestling better than jiu-jitsu? Well, that wrestler beat this guy. That individual is different than the system. So if you want to, please go back and watch at the time we called it McGregor Mayweather Breakdown. And if you want to go back and watch it or here on the YouTube channel, you can listen to it on SoundCloud or iTunes. It's Robin Black, Conor McGregor, Floyd Mayweather breakdown. And I'm proud of that one. I'm proud of it. The disruptor concept, we've released that into the world and we can all look at it, and it's a neat idea. And other people are talking about that idea. Other people have spotted that, but it's something we can go and share. And this, what we're going to talk about right now in our analysis number 3 is going to build on that. We're going to take the concept of the disruption. Disruptions come from the outside. McGregor looking to disrupt Floyd Mayweather and disrupt the boxing. Okay, that's cool. We're going to build on that. Now, I also shot an episode 2, and I added a few other concepts. This episode 3 is going to build on number 1. Why? Because episode 2, that's not my best work. You know, the game is a game of exploration, and you're swinging it. You got to swing at balls to try to hit them. You've got to dig to try to find, the new rabbit hole. You've got to chase rabbits down that hole. And sometimes they don't get where you want to go. And so episode 2, not my best work. If you're a completist or you want to listen to it on SoundCloud or iTunes, throw it on in the background, by all means. But not my best work. The work of research involves dead ends. It involves not quite getting what you want out of it. And if you love what you do, you appreciate these rabbit holes that didn't quite pay off too. That's a part of the journey. That's how we get better, is you search for things you may not find. Also, I was distracted by life, stress, fatigue, and emotion. I'm not going to talk about that here. We talk about those things on this YouTube channel in Fighting is About Fighting and lessons from fighting. We've got a lot about the journey and a lot of documenting the journey of studying fighting. So we'll talk about that there, and probably within a couple days we'll shoot another Fighting is About Fighting and talk about the journey of how we explore these things. But today we're going to talk about Mayweather McGregor. It's analysis number 3, and it's going to build on the breakdown number 1. One last time, we looked at disruption. So we say to ourselves, Conor McGregor is looking to disrupt, looking to come from the outside and disrupt Floyd Mayweather, but the institution, the concept of boxing itself. That's the goal. It isn't, let's see if this guy who's never boxed can have a great night boxing against the best boxer in the world. That doesn't make any sense. When you think in those limited concepts, that's where you get the reaction, this is stupid, he has no chance, he's going to get knocked out. I've seen lots of MMA guys, and friends of mine have said that. It's like, well, every time I talk to a high-level boxer, they tell me how these MMA guys can't box. That's true, they can't. And neither can this guy. He's looking to disrupt. So even if you're a big Conor McGregor fan, as we now get into analysis number 3, McGregor Mayweather, even if you're a big Conor McGregor fan, you like the sound of that. Conor McGregor can disrupt boxing. Okay, that makes a lot more sense if you're a McGregor fan than beat the guy at boxing. Okay, that sounds good to you. Analysis, true analysis, to do our job, to study it deeper. When we watch how the study of anything has evolved, the study of wine, the study of baseball, the study of art, the study of jazz, the study of architecture, it is new questions and new study. And the biggest questions you have to ask are how and why. McGregor will disrupt boxing. Nobody said he will, by the way. I didn't say he will. I said that's the approach. McGregor, but if you choose to say McGregor will disrupt boxing, the next questions you have to ask is how and why. And this is where we start to get into some really fun stuff. This is where we get into, now we have figured out the approach. We've broken away from convention. We've broken away from the categorization of the way that we typically do it, because that's not going to win you anything. How you examine the challenge, if you examine it the same way that every other person before you has examined it, you will find many of the same answers and they will not work. I think we agree on that, right? I'm going to give you one quote from Henry Ford, of course, car inventor, great inventor, brilliant mind, businessman, philosopher in his own way. And this is how you try to break out from that. So it's about expertise and about experts. Okay, so let's not denounce boxing experts or business experts. We still, when we see an expert in medicine, an expert in car racing, we should understand that they have a lifetime of study, and that's real. They themselves should not view themselves that way. So Henry Ford said, "None of our men are experts. We have most unfortunately found it necessary to get rid of a man as soon as he thinks himself an expert, because no one ever considers himself expert if he really knows his job. A man who knows a job sees so much more to be done than he has done, that he is always pressing forward and never gives up an instant of thought to how good and how efficient he is, thinking always ahead, thinking always of trying to do more, bringing a state of mind in which nothing is impossible. The moment one gets into the expert state of mind, a great number of things become impossible. Because an expert, if you call yourself one, if you identify yourself as one, you now, everything you know is the limits of knowledge. What you know is all of knowledge. And if all of knowledge is how Floyd or somebody else boxes, you can't beat them. But if they believe that and you think beyond it, you think outside of those parameters, you look at life through a different lens, you now see that everything is possible. Okay, so now let's dig into it. I'll give you the three concepts we're going to look at today. How FedEx, UPS, any of those, how they work. How does FedEx work? What is FedEx? Number two, the Stevens Island Wren, W-R-E-N. It's a bird, the Stevens Island Wren. And number three, the science of flimflam. Okay, those are our three concepts this week. FedEx, the Stevens Island Wren, also known as Lyle's Wren. It's a bird, flightless bird. We'll talk about it. And the science of flimflam. And I promise you, I'm going to make a lot more sense than in analysis number two. I think at that point, there are times you dig and you search and maybe push, but it's not always there. But if you just soften up a little bit, and I just had 3 days at the cottage, relax and reset and ask the right questions. And that's where we are. So we're starting with disruption. We want to disrupt Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather is the greatest boxer in the world. We need to beat him. Well, how can we beat him? Well, you sure as fuck aren't going to beat him at boxing. Well, what is boxing? In fact, why don't we ask ourselves straight up, what is Floyd Mayweather? What does he do? Okay? So let's ask that question. And I've got my friends on Periscope here. I'll even see if any of you have an answer. What is it Floyd Mayweather does in the ring? What's happening? Has anybody got anything? Is Floyd Mayweather... Let's go one step further. Why is Floyd Mayweather so good? Okay, Floyd's defensive skills came up. Okay, so Floyd is defensively great. What else? Running. Floyd Mayweather moves very well. Is that it? Is this what it is? Defensively great. Okay, what? How and why? Floyd, is he fast? Is Floyd the best in the world because he's fast? I don't think anyone believes that. Plus, if that's true, he's 40. Is he slower now? Can't be just because he's fast. If somebody says Floyd gets a read, he's a badass with something to prove, and he knows what you're going to do. High fighting IQ, that's just a bunch of words, and no offense. He knows what you're going to do. That's cool. Now we're getting into it. Mentally strong. If anyone thinks Conor will win, you're smoking dope. That was just on Periscope. So now, if that's expertise, we are experts. We know that Conor cannot win. We have limited ourselves. We have seen things as impossible. We are not experts. We have a white belt mentality. We believe everything is possible. But first thing we must do is identify why Floyd Mayweather is so good. What he does that makes him win. What he does that makes him undefeated, able to beat you. So we have a certain amount of things that have come up here. Speed. He's defensively very good. He moves really well. He knows what you're going to do. We're moving in the right direction, okay? We're moving in the right direction. So and we got some more great stuff here. So I'm gonna just kind of open it up here for a moment. So Floyd Mayweather, somebody said he gets a good read on you. So let's dig into what that really means. What is happening when Floyd Mayweather reads you, okay? We can just say, well, he's got a great read, okay? How and why? And what do we mean? So through a lifetime of training, any movement of your body, Floyd will quickly pick it up. That's a stimuli or a stimulus. That is an input. So we see some kind of movement. Okay? That movement over time has become cataloged. So that movement, we don't have to think. When we watch fighting, often as fans and as analysts and somebody that's got body language here, fans or analysts or people who talk about fighting with our friends or whatever, we'll see something happen. It's also the culture of how our stuff is presented. We'll see something happen. We'll see the replay, and then we'll say, oh, the punch came in, he slipped his head to the right, which loaded his left foot, and he landed the left hook. The man fell back, then we threw the overhand right in the turning side kick or the takedown or the straight punch or whatever. We saw something happen, and we explain it. We don't actually explain it. We just say what it was. Okay, that's what we see, and that's how we think, because that's how it's been presented. But what we have to understand is that Floyd Mayweather, if you asked him, what happened here? I don't know, man. I've been doing this for 50 years. He could tell you what he did, but why he did it was his mind has cataloged, interprets, and melds together, and there was one or two halfway decent explored ideas in the analysis number 2 video, and including how we can use partly our intuition and other aspects of our mind, that second flow of your brain, to gather information and meld it together, synthesize the information. So the man's body moves this way, he gritted his teeth like this, I saw tension in his neck, and as I did see that, it becomes cataloged, and through a lifetime, as my eye sees this, it takes an action through the process of my brain, which responds in me sliding over here. Over time, that becomes chunked. So those informations become chunked. That I see this, Floyd sees this, his brain reads it. Naturally, he understands to move over here, although then, over time, when he does, his balance has changed this way. His brain recognizes that there are now 2, 3, or 4 other options. He has the ability to read what they are. Again, that input goes into his brain, it gets processed, and an output of a choice. And over time, all that has happened. Now, what is that exactly? The experience to have read it, the experience to be able to process it in well under a millisecond, or milliseconds, in no time, essentially, all as close to no time as our human eye while watching it can decipher and then act that way. Floyd isn't, what we see it, and it's so special. Oh my God, he's elusive. He's so hard to touch. He is so fast. His reactions, all of those words, everything we're describing, what are we really talking about? We're talking about his central nervous system, okay? Floyd's central nervous system. The central nervous system, when we watch a fight at a high level, yes, there's a punch, and yes, there's a step, and yeah, there's a pivot there, and that was a feint, all those things. But what we're truly watching is a fight between two men's central nervous systems. And I don't think that statement will be argued by anybody in physiology, anybody in biochemistry, anybody in kinesiology, anybody in biology. That's what's happening. That is what we're witnessing. So it isn't about a different distance or a different rhythm. We'll circle back to that, and that might be number 4. Once we understand what is really at play here, we can circle back and then discuss how we hack that. And that's going to be analysis number 4. But first, we have to actually really determine what we're talking about. And we're talking about the central nervous system, which brings me to topic number 1, FedEx. okay? Mark, have you ever used FedEx or UPS? Most people have. I take these notes, I package them up into an envelope. I call a place, I get an envelope, and somebody picks it up. I pay $16, and in 2 days, it's at Mark's house. Well, that's how that happened. I mean, it's FedEx. I just FedExed it. What happened in between? Where did this go? Where did this fucking go? How did it get there? Well, it went in the truck to a place, and it got on a plane to a place, to a truck, to a guy. Just the same way, your brain detects a signal. It reads it. That's back to this is the truck, bringing it to the center. Then it processes it over to the plane, which sends it to the next center, which expresses it. Same kind of deal. What is that? How does it know where to go? It's just a thing with a little thing on it. It's just got these are the fascinating questions of life, my friends. It just says his address, and it got there. It's called an algorithm, okay? And that's the game that we're playing. This is what we're playing. This is what Floyd is doing. And this is what every fighter is doing. And although this is some nerdy math stuff, it's our job to figure out how to make this understood in a way where people can watch fighting. And yes, there's a right hand slipped over here as he stepped this way. But what is truly happening? Why is it so fascinating? How on earth can Floyd move out of the way of that, seemingly in real time, knowing you were doing it before you did it? Some physical cue that over time has been perceived by his brain and cataloged in a certain way where an algorithm chooses the option and it works. And those algorithms in Floyd's brain and nervous system, his central nervous system, are so highly tuned. I can't touch Floyd with that. His ability to see it, process it, send it, and then have an output or attack or a counter or move away or ridicule, make me look ridiculous. That is the algorithm of Floyd's brain, or many algorithms. So things come in, they need to be cataloged, they need to be processed, and the correct options need to happen in such a way that as the next thing comes in, you see when we start to break it down this way, you see when we start to really dig into it like this, how fucking fascinating it is. Because when you watch it, and you're like, well, if I was there, I could move here, and then I would give him one of these, and that would happen, and if I pivot, but it's all happening in real time. You're being hit, being smacked. The crowd is screaming. You got blood in your eyes. You got blood in your ears, breathing is hard, you're trying to control your nervous system. All of this is happening. That's why it's so cool. Of course it's cool when he slides back and throws that right hand. Did he think about it? Sometimes he created the scenario in which you would do this, knowing if you did it, his body would do that, all right? So we are looking at algorithms, in particular, sorting algorithms, okay? So when you send that FedEx package off to Mark's house, you package it up and you send it. We'll send this one, because I got crazy stuff on here. I have been digging into some of these concepts in a way that may not be healthy, but I just had 3 days at the cottage, and I'm so enjoying this again. I'm so enjoying the act of chasing curiosity in this beautiful thing. So I send this off to Mark's house. It goes through a number of sorting algorithms so that it gets processed. So what is an algorithm? I've got some notes here. I've got algorithms on here. I'll give you this simple. Algorithms are step-by-step instructions that seek the best possible solution to a problem. Okay? Think of that. Floyd's brain now is running algorithms, step-by-step instructions that seek the best possible solution to a problem. Now, I'm not going to get too, I hope I haven't already got too weird, but I'm not going to go too deep here. But for a moment, just to really deal with what we're dealing with, one algorithm would be a challenge, right? Think of the algorithms, the step-by-step procedures, the order in which things have to be done to, say, put together a movie, okay? We're putting together a feature film. We need locations, we need people, they need to work at this time, we need to have that there, we need the equipment rented from this place, we need to do it to minimize the cost. So you start thinking about it. All those trucks are there, we need food for these people, we need the lighting, we need the locations. It's insane. But they start to develop the algorithms to be able to do it. And then when they get good enough, they might put on 3 movies. So all of those are happening, and that's what's happening in the central nervous system. Excuse me. That's what's happening in the central nervous system of 2 fighters facing each other. Excuse me. Iced coffee, please. I have no idea what's going on there. If you're listening on iTunes, thank you. I am coughing for what seems like no apparent reason, but it literally feels like I have cat hair in my throat. Fascinating. So, while you're fighting, you are literally running that's crazy. Multiple algorithms. How loud is that in there, Mark? I'm trying to turn the other direction. I think I got rid of it. So multiple algorithms that are all working off each other, that rely on certain acts being done first before that can be done. And while you're doing all that, you are also trying to, those things are often considered, there's one other concept, those things are considered urgent. Urgent are things that must be addressed right now. And this is something you can take to your own work, whatever it is you do. We spend a lot of time doing the urgent. The urgents are things we have to do now. But the important are things that if you don't address them, they'll kill you later. Urgent will kill you now. Important will kill you later. So while dealing with all the urgency of whatever's coming at you, processing all of that with your central nervous system, defensively countering whatever, the important is introducing physical and psychological chess pieces so that later you can take over. Okay, so all this is happening. So the sorting algorithm is the key. So a couple of things I want to look at very quickly. I'll wait till Mark is back on this. He just stepped out for a second. Oh, there he is. I want to know, so on, if you're listening, you won't see this, but can you see this, Mark? Yep. So can you see the numbers at the top? So basically, if you're listening, it's just a list of numbers, 5, 3, 1, 6, 7, 2, 4, 8. So this is the simple, I'm just going to illustrate it very quickly. The simplest type of algorithm is called a bubble sort. The simplest type of sorting algorithm is called a bubble sort, which means we take the 5 and the let's say our goal is to sort this from lowest to highest. We sort from 5 to 3. And whichever one is lower, we put first, which is 3. Then we go from 5, which would be here, to 1. 1 would be next. Then 5, then 6. Then we go 7 to 2. 2 would go here. Then 7, which would move to 4. 7, 8. That would be a bubble sort where you just compare pairs and you go progressively lower. Step 2, we would go 1 to 3 to 5 to 2 to 4 to 6 to 7 to 8. And then with a few more steps, we would have sorted it down. Bubble sort, comparing the two things, moving the one lower, and then going in. This process takes forever, right? Comparatively forever. There's no way that Floyd Mayweather or anybody else can see your left hand move and go, is it a jab or a hook? Okay, no, it's more likely a hook. Is it a hook or an uppercut? No, okay, it's more likely a hook. Is it a hook or is it an you're punched in the face. And then doing it with all of the other choices and movements. And he's not just comparing punches, movements of shoulders, movements of hips. He's watching the center of the body, and through a lifetime of being exposed and sensitive to this, he is able to see all these things. Now, he can't bubble sort them. The simplest, just go on Google and Google bubble sort. You'll see this is a simple sorting algorithm. The brain can't do it. It's way too slow. You'll get yourself knocked out. And in fact, when you go in for a spar, your brain starts doing things like this. It starts attempting to sort what it's seeing in the simplest ways, which is why if I sparred with Floyd Mayweather, he would knock me out right away as I'm trying to figure out, well, did this mean this, or boom, I'm unconscious, right? My brain is not, my central nervous system is not highly developed enough to sort the threats and train myself to react. So very quickly, I'm going to show you the fastest method of sorting as measured measuring an algorithm in scalable time is a rough sort or a bucket sort into sort of evenly sized categories, followed quickly by a merging sort. So you take, and you can see when you think of that, is you sort by category. Is it the left side of the body? Is it the right side of the body? At Floyd's level, it would be, is it real or is it fake? It would be the simplest sorts. The simplest type of clumping and sorting. That's fake, it's irrelevant. That's real, it goes into this bucket. Now that it's real, is it in balance? It's in this bucket. This happened fast. I'll show you quickly. Mark, tell me if you can see this. See all those little buckets? You can read that? Basically, here's all the numbers at the top. We need to sort them into these buckets. Let's say, if this was MMA, the potential is going to grab my body, the potential is going to back up when he punches, and we're not thinking this. Again, this is an algorithm that our brain, our central nervous system may be running, okay? We're attempting to sort. So all the numbers from 0 to 9, which would be 3 and 9, would go into this bucket. 3 and 9, and then everything from 10 to 19, which is nothing, and then 20 to 29, we got 21, 25, 29, and then 30, we've got 37, and then we got 43 and 49. So we've taken all those at the top and we've sorted them into some buckets. Then from there, if we had to process them further, we would. And that's the kind of thing that the brain is doing. It doesn't know it's doing it. When you talk to coaches, they will say, yeah, he seems to handle any of those things. He gets a read on any kind of kick. He's sorting by bucket, or sorting by rough sort, clumping them up. So these are the types of things the brain is doing. This happens, that this means this. Now, very quickly, I'm going to go off onto this side. All I wanted to do with this step one was take a look at why Floyd is so good. Now, if I'm not that good at this, and a lot of heavyweights may not be quite as good at this, it can become very simplified. Actually, I'm going to use an example that just popped to mind. Showtime Pettis. If you just quickly Google Robin Black, Anthony Pettis, what you will see is maybe a year ago I sat down with Anthony. He was cutting weight, so he's a little quiet, but I'm such a big fan, and I've watched him move. It's something very special. And I don't, in the fights, obviously, but I've watched him just train for pleasure and to work himself out. It's an incredible thing. So Anthony was fighting Joe Lozon, and he kept giving him the right shoulder, kept giving him the right shoulder. Joe started putting all of that movement into the straight right hand bucket, straight right hand bucket, straight right hand bucket, straight right hand bucket. And as this shoulder came out, Anthony threw the head kick. And you do see, it's fascinating. If you take a break, feel free right here. Okay, welcome back. No, wait, here. Take a break. Okay, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that. Anthony you see Joe Lozon attempting to parry the punch as the kick comes. Now we call that pattern setting. We call that using a feint, disguising the kick. There's a lot of things that we call it for what Anthony did. But what happened was the algorithm of Joe Lozon's brain farted, basically. I know that's not the technical term, but he had an algorithm fart. All right? His brain threw it in the old straight right hand bucket, and he wasn't prepared for the right kick bucket. That's a simple version. And a similar one, there's millions of these, faking the takedown to the overhand right. Your brain puts this threat into the takedown bucket, and instead, an overhand right comes, knocks you out. Or goes to block the right hand. It's the head punch bucket that your algorithm has sorted it into, and instead you shoot the takedown. So your central nervous system is running these algorithms all the time. Why is Floyd so good? What I was going to use as the other example is 2 or 3 of the last 4 Reem fights, Overeem. Shout out to Alistair Overeem. We're huge fans. Overeem would just work that straight left hand, straight left kick, but he would also put his head out here so that you identified it in the he's trying to trap me bucket. Your brain, and you might not be thinking, Overeem's trying to trap me, but your central nervous system recognizes that head is over there, and he's so good. That is not a real thing. That's not a mistake. Overeem is trying to trap me. Overeem is trying to get me to throw a right hand or a right kick. I don't know why, but because that's almost the only target there, and it's not a target I want to throw at because my brain has thrown it in the trap bucket, I throw nothing. And you see long periods in Overeem's fights where he's left you with nothing. You have two weapons, both of which are good, but because he's making it so available, you choose nothing for fear of counter. So these are how you trick the algorithm. These are how you manipulate the brain. These are how you throw it off. And it's so cool when you start thinking about this, when you start to really start to understand. It's not always, in fact, it's so often not just this guy threw this and it did this. Something happened here. That guy has the ability. Joe Lozon has the ability to block that kick. There was something just, hey, John Jones. How did he take out my man, Dan Cormier? And Dan, we love you. Never forget that, please. We love you. Over and over. This, and lots of you recognize this. And our simple, we're comfortable, it sounds good. We like it, feel good about it. We tell our friends, we know what happened. Just keep throwing that knee up and up and up. And it started to be identified in the lower body threat bucket. That's it. Dan's processing, his central nervous system started to classify, that FedEx package. That FedEx package was fucking going to Albuquerque, and that's all there is to it. It's a West Coast package. Oh, shit. It was supposed to be in New York. Now I'm unconscious. Right? So and Floyd, almost never gets farted. Floyd's algorithms, Floyd's central nervous system, that shit's unreal, right? So if we're going to outbox Floyd, whether we're the best boxer in the world or the second best boxer or an MMA fighter, we're not going to win. So we have to make this a central nervous system fight. That's what it is. That's what every fight really is anyways. The only problem is all these other guys are coming at Floyd Mayweather at his central nervous system gunfight, and they're bringing a boxing pointed stick. They're not fighting him right. Nobody's fighting him right. And most people don't even understand this, and I'm not making it up. This is what's happening. This is what a fight is. And when I say there's no such thing as boxing, and my boxing friends are like, dude, you've really got off the deep end. Now, this is what I mean. Doesn't matter what you call it. Doesn't matter how many 100 years you've done it. Doesn't matter what size of gloves you wear. Doesn't matter how you stand or which thing. It's a central nervous system battle. That's what it is. If somebody way better than somebody else boxes or kickboxes or fights or wrestles or whatever, it doesn't really have to be that much of a central nervous system battle because he's just so much better. He can just outbox me. But if we fight with our central nervous systems, which is what the fight is, now it's different. Did I just make it easier for Conor to win? No, I kind of made it harder, right? But it can be won now. Now that we see what a fight is, now we see that boxing doesn't exist. I know that sounds crazy, but it doesn't really. We're putting together through the use of physical, and the physical has to be there. You can't just train your central nervous system and be a ninja. Obviously, you've got to become very skilled and build your body in such a way that you can express it physically using this highly trained, highly tuned central nervous system. So now we got to beat Floyd Mayweather. If you're Conor, if you are somebody who says it's even possible, I'm someone who says it's possible, but now I know what it is. And all this time, Conor and John Kavanagh has known exactly what it is. And that's how Conor beat all these guys. Beat them all in a central nervous system fight. And whether I'm talking about people I admire deeply, like my friend Faraz on the YouTube channel. We had a great time. I love Faraz, and I appreciate him training me and all his insights and his brilliance. But when we're talking, he wanted to continue talking about this guy's power. Real. That power is real. But it's useless if his central nervous system can't win a central nervous system battle. And that's what every fight is. So that is FedEx. That is concept number one. Did it make sense? Mark, did that make sense? Yeah, right? Made sense. You know, this is what's happening. The brain is running algorithms, highly tuned, highly trained algorithms that you've trained your entire lifetime. Recognize, categorize, catalog, and have appropriate algorithmic responses. And it's not just one, it's algorithms on algorithms on algorithms. These are the most highly evolved machines in the world, these guys' brains. It's incredible, right? So that'll bring us to number two. I don't even know where I'm going here. Okay, number two. Now, one of the things, number two is the Stevens Island wren. Stephen, PH. You can Google this. There's lots of info. The Stevens Island wren is a real animal that is now extinct, but it's also been started to phrase as a campfire tale as well. And I'll try to get the root of it. I'll try to explore both gently. But so when I'm really enjoying my job, which is most of the time, almost all of the time, it's because there's this bliss in just exploring these things. And one of the great pleasures for me is I have many friends over the years, whether it's somebody I will see at something like Mike Brown, coach of ATT, or, my friend David Klonsky, who's a professor of psychology, or it'll be George St. Pierre. We spent some time last week. Or in this case, my friend Erwan Lacour. One of the great pleasures for me is, as we're exploring these things, to bounce them off people who have connections to this world. So, psychologist, doctor of psychology over here, Erwan, or, somebody who free climbs, or somebody who's a chess champion. You go in and you explore these interdisciplinary concepts, and you always relevant stuff, and you get these inspiring ideas. So Erwan Lacour, some of you will be familiar with him. He and Carlos Condit did an episode of Joe Rogan Experience. Cheers to my man, Joe. Thank you for everything. So that's one place you can see him talk for 2 to 3 hours. I've done 1 or 2 things with him. He has something called MoveNat, which is a company that is short for Movement Natural. MoveNat, MoVNAT.com. So I wanted to explore with him. He's an expert in movement. He's also a disruptor. And his MoveNat combines the physical with a highly tuned focus on efficiency and mindfulness. So, you see that, what's the guy Connor's trained with? No, the movement guy. Ido Portal. It's a coincidence that they both have the same amount of syllables in their name. But movement, Ido, very thankfully, I'm sure for everybody in movement stuff, and Connor, made movement a conversation within this type of sport. That's great. But Erwan is very different. Erwan doesn't just figure out how to move the body. And I'm not criticizing the work I've seen Ido and Connor do. I love it. And I love the idea of adding strength and mobility and all of these things, flexibility, combining just really owning in your body. It's beautiful. So I don't know how and where that connects in their arm to the mind, but in Erwan's work, it's very connected to awareness. So I talked to him about this whole thing, and he's a good friend, and it's great to talk to somebody who is a highly specialized person, yet he's highly specialized in the idea of something generalized. So the body movement climbing, running, jumping, carrying, all of these different things and how it connects to the body, and in his case, the central nervous system. So he was somebody excellent to talk to as a friend and a mentor in movement and to bounce these ideas off. But where I got with him, and this is where the Stevens Island Wren comes in, was we started to have a conversation, and it is something that has come up a lot in the talk of McGregor versus Mayweather, and that is the generalist versus the specialist. Okay? And I'm going to just pull out this. I just thought of it. I'm going to use G for generalist and S for specialist. Generalist, decathlete. Specialist, 100-meter sprinter. And people will immediately go, well, this is an MMA fighter, and this is a boxer. Boxer's a specialist. MMA fighter's a generalist. But these things are not binary. These things are not like definitive binary words. In fact, both of them are somewhere on this scale, somewhere on this continuum, because Floyd Mayweather is not a specialist in the way that a javelin thrower is a specialist, where it's just one thing. Floyd Mayweather is a specialized generalist. He fights with two hands and he moves. A specialist would be somebody who throws one powerful punch and smashes through a wall, or does one type of jump, or only sprints, or just throws a javelin. And even those people have disrupted. An outsider in the world of high jumping, this is a famous example, came in, everybody was jumping forward, and he jumped backwards. Full disruption in a completely specialized thing. But it's a continuum. Generalist would be if in the world of, say, fighting. So Irwan and his training they are generalists. They train every aspect of the body and how it connects to the mind and how it moves and how fluid it is and how to be efficient. And a specialist would be a sprinter. But that continuum, if an MMA fighter is a generalist, well, Conor is very specialized in the art of kickboxing and boxing. So he is a specialized generalist. If a specialist is somebody who throws only ones and twos and only moves a certain way, well, Floyd is a very generalized specialist. He's super mobile and he's light on his feet. He's improvisational. He's a very generalized boxer. He's not known, although that slide back right is something you see thousands of highlights because it's so beautiful. He's not the one punch guy. He's not the guy who has that one badass combination. In fact, Conor's left hand, quite specialized. Do you see what I'm getting at? Do you see what I'm getting at? The specialist and the generalist, very blurry, you know? Very, very blurry. Conor, highly specialized MMA fighter. Floyd, quite generalized boxer. So very much a continuum, and I think that's important to the conversation. But I don't think that is this conversation, but I think it's important. I don't think we can just say generalist, specialist. But we do agree that Floyd Mayweather is way more specialized in the thing that they're gonna do. Do we agree that? Because first we have to agree that the thing we're gonna do is the thing that Floyd thinks they're gonna do, right? I'm gonna go through these last two concepts, and all of this, we're going to explain how to do that on the next one. But so, we will agree that Floyd, in this setting, is the much more specialized guy. So where are the advantages of specialization? Let's see what we've got here. So the specialist is hot. This is the comparison. I think Irwan and Irwan was just such a good friend and such a smart guy to bounce these ideas off of, because he, although a generalist in movement, is a specialist in how the mind connects and the central nervous system connects to movement. So we all have that push and pull between generalized and specialized. That's something everybody does. The wrestler who's learning to box, specialist, adding subspecialty. To a degree, Carlos Condit was a dual specialist, striker and jiu-jitsu player. Obviously, he was a great wrestler and a great mover and great condition, but really those were, and as great of a wrestler as Cowboy Cerrone is, when he's on the ground, he's even more specialized in his jiu-jitsu and submission game and his striking game, dual specialists, right? That specialization arc is so wide. I think we do ourselves as fans and the way we explore fighting a great disservice when we when we overclaim some of these things. They're very fluid, and that's part of the fun. But so as we become more specialized, we become highly adapted. So all of those neural pathways, all of those algorithms have taken shape in Floyd Mayweather to deal with these threats, these highly adapted, highly focused threats, highly specialized to deal with these specific things. That's an advantage. Is there an advantage for the more generalist of the two? Where one is highly adapted, Floyd is highly adapted, Conor is highly adaptable, all right? The generalist, or the higher degree of generalization, is highly adaptable. So the threat, and this has been discussed, you're discussing it in all types of different ways, but the threat, and the reason I'm laying it out this way is so that we can get into the truth of these things and how they may happen in our next breakdown, our next analysis. The threat to the highly adapted is novelty. Novelty, the unfamiliar, the things outside of the narrow thing you've adapted your game for. Your central nervous system, your thinking, your physicality, your experience, highly adapted for this group of things. They call it boxing. I say boxing doesn't, not even a thing. I know it's a thing, but I'd say it's not a thing. Highly adapted. So things outside of that are the problem. They cause the pressure. They cause the stress. And this man is highly adaptable, so novel experiences themselves are not novel. So new and weird and odd, they're adaptable. The stress of adaptation is no stress at all. That's what they do. That's what they do. They adapt, right? And there's lots of examples of it in one fight, within a single fight, finding the right range or finding the right timing, or how he dealt with Mendes, or in multiple fights over 10 rounds. You saw the adaptation of Conor McGregor in rounds 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 of the 10 rounds with Diaz, right? Particularly, I think round 7 or 8, the time where he would have normally been finished. The first time, he had adapted his systems, the physiology, the conservation of energy, the psychological maintenance of dealing with the reality that, okay, this is going to happen, but we'll get through it. All of that he had adapted. So he adapts. So that's where his advantage lies. So quickly, the Stevens Island Wren, I shall read it to you. Where's my... Oh, by the way, before I tell you, as we're looking at specialization, the algorithm stuff, this book, can you see that? Algorithms to Live By, super cool. Really, really cool. Lots of really fascinating stuff, and they'll give you insight into how you do things, which is really useful for all of us. Sometimes you go to things like this when you're stressed or you're not performing at your best, which kind of how I felt at episode 2, analysis number 2, pushing too hard and tired, emotionally not hitting my groove. And so some of these things are great then, but they're also great when you are humming along, because you get these new insights. Why do you do these metacognition, thinking about thinking? Why do I do some of the things I do? How can I do them better? How can I improve on stuff? It's a fascinating book. Really neat stuff. You want to know how much time to spend looking for a parking spot in a certain environment? That'll tell you. I'll give you a quick thing before I get to specialized versus generalized. This is called the secretary problem. You can Google it. Google the secretary problem. It's fascinating. I'll give you a little insight into algorithms. But the secretary problem is this age-old sort of quiz analysis of if you could interview 100 humans, secretaries, in the old days it'd be women, now you could have men or women, and because it's 2017, and you can only interview each one once, and you either have to hire them on the spot or they're gone forever. And you have the ability to be able to discern who is better than the other through your own metrics and systems. You can interview one, and then you either hire them or release them, and they're gone forever, and then the next, and then the next, and you know which one's better than which. How many should you, but you don't know what the maximum quality is or how bad one could be. You don't know how. This one could be the smartest person in the world, the top one. This one could, not be able to do anything, like not, be useless. How many should you interview before you pull the trigger on the next best one? That seems weird. How could there? 37. The answer is 37. There's algorithms to explain the statistical likelihood that after 37, you've got enough of an overview that the next one that is better than any of the 37 jump. And that's true. And very quickly, you can apply that to almost anything. If there's no cost to looking at another house and another house, but as you look at it, it's gone, and you have 100 to look at, how many should you look at till you know the quality that you get the next best one? 37. And these are the fascinating algorithms. These are real. It's got to do with parking. It doesn't matter, parking spots, you're hiring somebody, a dating app, or looking at houses. It's called the secretary problem or optimum stopping problem, 37. And once you look into the how and why that is, you're like, wow, it makes you look at the world different. So I digress, but I highly recommend this book, Algorithms to Live By. Super cool. You may also read it and go, wow, that is some nerdy shit. Robin, you're a weirdo. Huh? Guilty as charged. So the Stevens Island Wren, we were talking about specialization versus generalization, right? Floyd being the much more specialized, so he's highly adapted to these things. Conor being the more generalized, although he has adapted to boxing, but nowhere boxing, that thing that doesn't exist. It's a central nervous system fight within some amount of rules, some of which we just agree to. We'll get into more of that on the next one. And so why am I talking about a Wren? Because there is something that we called the specialist's dilemma, okay? The specialist's dilemma. And that says, this is not my saying, I've found it in other people's writings. I'm sorry I don't have the person, but I'd like you to know it's not mine. You can find it though. The specialist dilemma says, the stronger your competitive position, the more vulnerable you are to being disrupted and replaced, okay? The specialist's dilemma says, the stronger your competitive position, the more vulnerable you are to being disrupted and replaced. And I believe when you go to find who said that or where it's been used, I believe it's a business view. I will try to find an example here. Walmart, if all of a sudden selling oranges isn't good, it's not going to affect Walmart. They're highly generalized, or it won't affect that particular Walmart. Whereas if you sell oranges and there's an orange shortage, or people suddenly hate oranges, or oranges turn out they kill people or whatever, the orange guy's fucked, right? That is the specialist dilemma. When I was looking at that, I'm looking at my own life, and you can look at yours and compare. You sell coffee. Well, hopefully, I think everyone's always going to love coffee. I was a hairdresser for many years, I think until about maybe 12 or 13 years ago. I loved it. It was a great job. You're around people. It's creative. It gets you to think differently. People would always go, well, everyone's always going to need haircuts. What if a machine suddenly cut your hair really, really well? In fact, better. You're done, right? That's the specialist dilemma. I commentate and analyze fighting. That's what I do. I don't know too much about basketball. I should be fine. People like my work, and I love doing it. What if something happened where, it becomes outlawed everywhere? Football. People are specialized in football. There's a lot of stuff going on there. Football could be in trouble in 5 or 10 years. The specialist dilemma. When the more highly specialized you are, the more ripe for disruption and being replaced. Okay? So it kind of makes sense, right? Sort of makes sense. So I'll use this Wren as an example, and it's a very interesting one. And a Wren, of course, is a little bird. So this Stephen, that's not the code. That's my code. It's not my wife's code. She knows my code though. I believe this is it. Yes. So the Lyle's Wren or the Stevens Island Wren was a small flightless bird, a passerine belonging to the family, etc., of the New Zealand wrens. It was once found throughout New Zealand, but when it came to the attention of scientists in 1894, its last refuge was Stevens Island in Cook Strait. It was just, so this is where the cool myth comes in, that a lighthouse keeper. So what happened is over time, this little wren had no predators. It was just the nature of this little island where it lived. It was selling oranges or, it just had its thing. It had no natural predators. So over time, it evolved a way that flight didn't even need it. Wandered around, its food was there, its safety was there. They were great. The urban myth says that and it's a great one, and a lot of these urban myths end up, and even these sort of slightly off scientific things that are later proven to be untrue, remain because they're such strong analogies. But the urban myth is that a lighthouse keeper moved in, and he had a cat named Tibbles, which sounds too good to be true, who just went and killed all the wrens because it had never had a predator, and it had highly specialized that it didn't need to fly, it didn't need to have any defensive systems, it just was what it was. And it lived there forever, forever and ever. And then one day, Tibbles cruises up and starts eating all the wrens. That's a little exaggerated, but the truth is, it did the distribution extinction. Much of what is commonly assumed to be established knowledge about this species extinction is wrong or misinterpreted, starting with the account by Rothschild in 1905 that claimed a single cat had killed all the birds. The research of Galbraith and Brown has uncovered much of the actual history of the bird during the short time it was known to researchers, and it goes through, and as the humans came, eventually this bird, including cats, had predators. But it shows you this type of specialization. You can go on forever. It's perfect. Everything you got is perfect. There's no threats to your business or your company or your family or you, the bird, or boxing or whatever. You just go about specializing and specializing and specializing and specializing and specializing, and then something changes. Okay? And so between looking at disruption, then looking at what it is we need to disrupt if we were going to beat the best boxer in the world, which is his algorithms of his central nervous system. Looking at the idea that things do go extinct or things do suddenly over-specialize, and they become so adapted that they are not easily adaptable. That brings us to the last little bit. And this one will lead into next time, where I'm going to go into the actual possible physical options, technical options, and steps and choices that you or Conor McGregor or anybody facing somebody like this could take. But our last ingredient today, as the setup to prepare us for that, is the science of flimflam. Now, flimflam, when I first started digging into Conor McGregor, and it was a real pleasure. I was working at Fight Network, and there wasn't a lot going on in the world of fight breakdowns. It's amazing, incredible to me that the percentage, and this was a dream, and it was something we talked about. Lawrence Kenshin is a good friend. He's someone I admire. Please get his book. Lawrence Kenshin has this fantastic book out about striking. Please go get it. Tell him I sent you, and tell him hello. Most people don't know who Lawrence Kenshin is actually to their face. Fight fans know who he is, and especially the Muay Thai world, and some of the reviews that his book are getting from some of the elite combat people in the world is so beautiful to see, and Lawrence is so good. But we would sit around. I do know who he is, and I've actually trained with him, and we've hung out together, and we've spent time together, and we used to sit and we used to go, wow, maybe one day if Jack or BJJ Scout or us or whoever, if we just work, if we just show people that this is so cool, one day it'll be normal. And that day's here. Bloody Elbow has started to do a ton of stuff about analysis, and I don't consume much of anything, mostly because I try to stay away from gossip or politics, and that's just the world. That's not a fight thing. I try to stay away from gossip and politics, so I don't watch any CNN or Fox or MSNBC or none of that stuff. Personally, I don't think that's very good for us. I know this is off topic, but you can end up in a place where the world is much scarier than it really is. And what the world wants from you is not to be aware of what's going on in Syria and have that stress you out. The world wants you to be your best you. And you're not going to be your best you when you're sort of distracted by all kinds of crazy stuff that's going on over there. But anyways, but yeah, and there's other sites. I mean, it's sad. I don't know if you know, but Vice just stopped doing fight stuff. Fightland was great over there. Wherever Jack Slack goes, follow him and consume his stuff. That guy knows fighting and he understands the beauty of it. My friend Sarah Kerchak, also follow her on Twitter, Sarah Kerchak. I forget. Fodder Figure, Fodder Figure. Go follow her. She's a great writer and a cool person. So, but yeah, we used to dream about the idea that one day people would be talking about the actual fights and not, the Twitter beefs. And that day's coming. And we see it, and it's a very beautiful thing to see. But so back then, we were talking about Conor McGregor came up, and most of us were like, wow, there's something different here. In the early things we clued in on was, and Stephen Thompson was another one, and even Holly Holm, there wasn't a lot of talk back then, and there wasn't a lot of training, and the coaches that were doing it were being pretty quiet about it because people were winning by playing with range, manipulating the distance between them. And I know this is only 4 or 5 years ago, but it wasn't really discussed much. We're going to kick, we're going to punch, whatever. Not where we can get kicked and where we can get punches. Henry Hooft, guys like that, always, Duke Rufus, they've always been understanding that and on the front ends of that. But the global awareness in MMA didn't have a lot of that, which was why after the shot, the punches, so much commitment that everybody was giving away that space in the middle and then getting in. So when we first saw Conor McGregor, we were like, okay, something's up. And it was first, and I think I don't know who he was fighting, but if you look back, I've got breakdowns from him from years back, and you go and watch them, and it's so fun to see. You can see what we were looking at the time, because it was very primitive, the way we all watched fighting. And you're looking at it going, my God, he's like doing something different with, and we called it distance management. That existed in, I'm sure, kickboxing back in the day. We're like, wow, he's managing the distance. And he's using flimflam, all this crazy stuff. We didn't want to yet get into why or what it means or what it's doing to you psychologically or whatever, but we understood that as if he kept you outside and then he used spinning kicks and weird threats and things that were uncomfortable for you to kind of heat up the range in between you way outside there and you inside, you did one of two things. You stayed out there, in which case he just played with that edge of how far out. He had bigger, longer range and a better control of range. Longer range with his straight left hand, longer reach, better control of his position compared to you. And he managed the distance, lit you up with a little flim-flam, a little action, a little sleight of hand, a little stress. And then you either stayed out there and he feasted on you, or you came rushing in and he fell back, and Jose Aldo, 13 seconds. You come forward, he steps back, boom. And that was the game. And it was very fascinating. But what's the science of it? So it's something. And when you see it's something, okay, cool. Well, that's, we can look at anything. We can look at any one of the things that we see. Oh, man, that guy's got good head movement. There's a science there. What's going on in his body? What's going on in his torso? What's going on with his sense of rhythm? What's going on with his perception? So flim-flam was one of those things too, where we would look at it. We know what it is. When you see it. People like the term, and hashtag flim-flam was really fun. And when I was in Russia, people were yelling flim-flam at me, which was pretty neat. But what is he actually doing? And what he's doing is trying to play with your central nervous system, right? Trying to give you things that are outside of your algorithm. That's the flim-flam. That's the science of it. He's trying to, Floyd Mayweather, I know we're gonna talk about this. It's gonna be an ongoing thing. It's gonna come up in conversation. Your friends are gonna ask you about, is he in his head? Is he in his head? Psychological warfare? No, probably not. Probably not. It's fucking Floyd Mayweather. So if you can't break him psychologically, you've got to crack the central nervous system. You've got to overload it. You've got to get it. So we looked at a couple of things. Algorithms there to read, catalog, sort, and have the appropriate response super fast. And hyper-specializations. He's adapted, not adaptable. So whatever he's adapted to, you have to make him read it wrong. I know that's how we spent a long time trying to get to there. And I know that we could have said all this in 10 sentences. But if you understand it just a little bit more, what it really is, when we go to the next point, when we go to the next layer of the choices, what he's going to do or what he's going to try to do to crack that central nervous system, to overload those algorithms, to deceive. Once we get to that, then you'll understand it on a better level. And from my hang with wow, I wrote a lot of stuff down. From my hang with Erwan, my friend, and we're going to hang out and talk about this further too. And I have other friends, David Klonsky and I, were going to chat about it. So I'll have a movement coach and a psychologist, PhD, and I'll bring some other friends in to add to these perspectives and really check the science. But the flimflam, I'm writing it down if you're wondering on SoundCloud why. Flimflam is just deception, right? Deception. What is deception? Deception, misdirection, all of these things. Why would that matter? Oh, he's got to trick him. He's got a misdirection. We can say that. We said it. We could say it in 10 sentences. You didn't have to. And if you're one of the people who's like, that's it, I spent an hour and a half here, I'm sorry. I just wanted you to feel this. Not just say, we got to like overload Floyd's brain. Do we know what that really means? I just wanted you to know what it really meant. That's all. I just wanted you to really know what it meant. What's really happening. So that now when we go to the next stage and we say how, and we'll do that next week, how we're going to crack his central nervous system. How we're going to use his algorithms, the things that he's specialized in, his specialization, and how that is adapted in a particular way to react in a certain way, how by being something else, that can possibly work, and how coming from the outside, like all disruptions, can make that work, and how being a slightly more of a generalist and less of a specialist can actually be of value. And I know we've taken a long way to get here, but we needed to set up how those things come together. He's not a boxer. He's not specialized. Maybe that's a good thing. How could that be a good thing? Floyd is impossible to hit, and he's super elusive. That's his central nervous system. What's the flimflam? How can he use that to disrupt that? Well, now I think we've laid it out. But basically, here's what we're going to leave you with. And I'm writing. Bear with me. That N is not very readable. My N is terrible, but bear with me. It's deception enough to create confusion. Confusion in the algorithms. Make the algorithms fart. Make the algorithms wrong. Make them start sending the mail to Dallas instead of California. And once we use deception to create confusion, that's how we disrupt it. We disrupt the central nervous system. That's real. You can do that. Does it make sense? I know we took a long way here, and I know that if you checked out episode number 2, we took a long way, including through the Polynesian Islands. But if we understand that today, I believe we've brought it to somewhere where now we can really look at what some of these choices are. Is we said that the greatness is not an eternal thing. It's something that's ever changing, and that the individual can be greater than the system. A person can be better than boxing, and that disruptions come from the outside. And we use that to say how. Well, the disruption would have to be by beating the central nervous system, which is run as a bunch of algorithms run in your brain that collect the information, catalog it, process it, and then do the proper decisions, which we would try to find the way that being a generalist would be an advantage over the specialist who is highly adapted but not very adaptable, and how we'll use flimflam, which we're going to go into detail. The science of flimflam will be the next episode, and the how and the why. One more how and why. What'll be the actual choices, technical choices, steps to try to beat Floyd Mayweather. Because this is all fucking possible. We go back to Henry Ford. If you just stop thinking you're an expert, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the people who think this is impossible. The reason they think this is impossible is because they think they're experts. So the limit of everything they know is the limit of everything there is. And that's just not true. That's just not true. We approach this with beginner's mind and a white belt mentality. And when we do that, not only will we see this fascinating stuff, and Conor could get knocked out in the second round. You know what that would mean to me? I love Conor McGregor. I'm an admirer and a fan and kind of a friend when I see him. But it would mean absolutely nothing to this work. Absolutely nothing. Because the journey of this work was incredible. If all of that amounts to nothing and a bunch of weird 14-year-olds are hitting me up on Twitter, oh, you nutsucker, like, who cares? Because now we have a little insight into actually all kinds of things about disruption we can apply to our lives and about a white belt mentality to stay limitless and about how the central nervous system, fighting is a central nervous system fight, and how it works. And if you pick up this book, you can, and they didn't pay me. I don't know these guys. I just really like this book. Did a lot for me. It'll take you further into some of these ideas, which will be really valuable. And then we'll look at it, and when we watch that fight, we'll be watching a disruptor attempt to crack the central nervous system of the greatest boxer in the world in a central nervous system fight. Of a guy who's used his skills and the advantages, in his case, that may be there of generalized thinking and the ability to adapt to novel experiences and create novel experiences and approach things differently with everything he's learned as a generalist and actually beat the specialist. Can that happen? I don't know. How could it happen? That's what we're going to do in number 4. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I can't tell you how much I did. I'm sorry I lost the plot in Mayweather-McGregor analysis number 2. I think there's an idea or two there that I will flesh out over the time, and it was great value to me to do. But it helped me get to here where I just had the best time. How long were we? An hour and a half? I just had the best hour and a half I've had in a long time. Exploring something that's deeply fascinating to me. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, please share it anywhere you can. Follow me on Instagram, Robin Black MMA. And if you are still here and you love what we're doing here, please hit us up Patreon. It's Patreon, patreon.com/Robin Black. People have been crowdfunding us, and as we get enough here, it'll cover all our bills, and we'll start being able to have guests. And one day, we're going to be able to do the old school breakdowns with the footage and all of that kind of stuff. But this has been a great gift to me today. I feel like myself again, and I thank you guys so much. Blackout.